And so the next stage of this then is that to understand what game is being played here on earth in every bit of a game. And you can see it in soccer since it's now World Cup time, but it's important to understand what you're looking at when you're looking at a soccer field. Now, first of all, we always have the ball, and we've seen the ball as either pentagons and hexagons, and this year it's a triquera, which is even a more potent symbol. It's like basically a trinity on the soccer ball. But what's important to understand about this game is that this game is functioning on two dualistic poles, okay? But first, the energy must be channeled. So let me show you the vision. Imagine, because I don't watch soccer much, but I've seen enough of it now to understand the scope of it. But there's 50 teams or something like that in the beginning, possibly more. They come from every country, okay? And now when the first teams play each other, because everyone has their team, because everyone was born in a specific country or they have a team that they like, they first root for this one team. But generally, most people's team loses. So on that first round. So during the next round, they actually have to pick a new team, a team that they like, and that they say, okay, well, my team is out, but I'll still ride with Argentina because at least they're Latin. You see what I mean? So then they pick another team. Now, if you imagine this on an energetic level, what you would see first is this fat wedge pyramid. And now that first round of loss, now the pyramid's smaller because that first layer has now dissolved, and now the only thing that's left from that first layer is the ones who made it beyond, right? So now the second round starts. Same thing happens. The people who had that were winners in the second round, now some of them are losers. But here's what happens with the energy. When you win one time, you get excited. So the letdown is bigger. You see, because if you get canceled in the first round, like the person's like, I knew they weren't going to make it anyway. They're sorry. They have a good team. You see what I mean? So they're okay with that because that always happens. But it's when there starts to become hope. So the second round comes, that team loses. So the energetics are higher. So the person's more upset that their team lost. But they're also equally more excited to pick another team. Because what the person's doing is they're channeling energy. Now, I'm just giving this to you in soccer, but this happens in makeup. This happens in cinema. This happens everywhere. I'm just letting you see the power source so you understand the power source that's inside of you. So then what happens is the first wedge, second wedge is gone. Now the third wedge. Let's say there's only 5 wedges so we can end this soon. So now the third wedge, the same thing's going to happen. Now the last game. The last game can be seen as, again, the pyramid, because this is pyramid energetics. The last game is there. So what you have is you have a winning team, or the team, or you have basically the two poles. You have either going to be what's the winners and what's going to be the losers, but everyone has decided which one they're riding with, and the game starts. Now, what happens here then is that it doesn't even matter who really wins for the controllers, because they have both pieces of the energy right there, positive and negative. Someone's going to be laughing at the end of the game, and someone's going to be crying. And it happens every time. You can pan. These people are so emotional about the game that every time they lose, they start to really shed tears, and it really affects them, okay? So what I'm saying is the dignity of the process here and the dignity of understanding all the human beings around us is to understand that their expressions are very strong. And that when they send those expressions and they get involved in this kind of things, what they're actually conducting is a mass ritual. And this mass ritual has got so much energy involved in it that those people's energetics are really being used to shape, form, and fashion the overmind. Like what the overmind's going to project next and what we're all going to go into next. So this is why I was saying about, that's why they call it also the craft, or this art of this level of magic that they're using on everyone else to get their energy funneled all into one point. But notice the funneling is important because you have to bring the energy into one point. So you can see this as a cone, or you can see this as a triangle. You can see this as a pyramid. You can see this as concentric circles that are eventually forming into a dot in the center. And all of these are metaphors for all the same thing, which is taking what would be a large amount of energy and then focusing it all into one point. That way it can become effective. So this is also what you should see inside of yourself, is that, yes, indeed, you have a massive level of energy. You connect to more things than you can even really penetrate. Like you can't actually get to the bottom of what it is that's going on with you, because the shape that you're in, when trying to comprehend it, is too spread out. So when you bring it all in, instead of all having all these external characters and having this other quarrel going on with this other race and, this kind of thing, you bring it all into the center point, right? And then you bring them all onto the field for one final game. To show them that they're in this final game, there can only be a winner and a loser. There could never be a tie. Now notice what the tie means. It means to tie things together, to link things together, right?
Right.
So, but in that game, there's no tie. They always make sure that, if you tie it up on the kickoff on the last round, they're going to have another kickoff until someone loses. So this is strange energy dynamics, because if they actually, just with that game alone, let's say how you could really change a world, just with soccer alone, if someone passed the law and said, okay, we're now allowing ties, and then the greatest game that was held for that last 4 years ended in a tie, then everyone would actually walk away from that game balanced. So this is why I'm also saying to you that that's why I have to convert this story that I'm explaining to you today. And I guess other people will hear it because it'll be on a recording, but I will have to convert it into another way of explaining this. But realize that some just see soccer. So you have to be able to, or you don't have to do anything, but you get to be able to show it to them in that way. Why some, they have a different kind of preference, but it's all still the same thing. So let's conclude this by getting back into the energy module. So now imagine one of these huge domes, and they generally look like nests, but if you can imagine one of these huge soccer stadiums, everyone's around it. There's good energy or positive energy. There's negative energy. Both of them are present, and they're completely polarized. Like one team does not like the other team. Some people don't like both of the teams. Most of the time, you very seldom find any of that kind of thing going on. So the two poles are polarized. So imagine yourself pulling off of it, and then you look down on it, and you'll see the generator. You'll see the power supply, because what you've accomplished is you've taken two opposite poles and you've made them come together all in one act. Right? And this act for them is called the game. And then now they are utilizing their energies back and forth, back and forth, back and forth to become a generator. But let me show you an even deeper key. Now, what happens is because, first of all, the game itself is tainted. There's beer everywhere. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with beer, but the whole idea here is definitely not to expand. There's a lot of hatred going on, and then there's a lot of overwhelmed emotions, and basically the whole thing is chaos. So what is generally created from this energy is chaotic energy, and that's the only thing that these beings are really trying to focus, the Masons, the Jesuits, etc., focus things into chaotic energy, right? But imagine this. What happens is in a real generator, if you didn't use those kind of components, and let's say you use noble components like crystals. So imagine now a soccer field of crystals, where on one side are all the crystals that are, let's say, in the geometry of 5, while on the other side, there's all the crystals that are geometry of 6. And then you put a magnet in the middle or something to pull them together or attract them together. And then once they're pulled together, now they're going to generate this new energy. But this energy, instead of being like what you see after a soccer game, is going to be entirely different. It's going to be like the difference between using Monsanto's versus using organic food. Because the components are the same, it's still energy dynamics. You're trying to take what is two opposing poles or two things that are diametrically opposed to one another, and you're trying to bring them together. Now, whoever said there was something wrong with that? Isn't that not what we're trying to do here in the world? Right? But there's an important reason of why I'm saying try, because try is a triangle. What the world is attempting to do is use the form of a triangle or the pattern of a triangle to bring everyone together. I just explained it to you in that way. But why it doesn't work? Because of how that system is set up. It's like someone can just come in and say, oh, I see the problem. Why don't you bow your triangle? And then from that, you'll get a totally different result. So this is like as an archer, you're sitting there and your whole thing is archery. And it's like you're trying to get a more precise shot, and you're trying to get more velocity on your arrow. And that's just your thing, right? But let's say you keep building these arrows the same way that everyone else is building them. You slight variation. You may put a little different feather on the back. But you never get that, hey, it's the tip that really needs to be changed. And then someone comes along that's a little bit more advanced at archery and says, oh, guess what? A while ago I found out that if you actually bow that tip, it's going to change everything about how you're an archer. So this is also how it is with this simple stuff. And there was a lot of simple stuff talked today, and there was some complex things. But it's just a simple adjustment, a minor adjustment at times that will change everything about what we are. And if we tune more into that versus the stuff that we don't understand at times, we'll find that it's still present there, that we'll actually be able to get ourselves to that next stage of expansion. Like, some people do like to hear the whole story because we become very complex beings in the drama. But some others just want to hear it very simple, like, tell me in my way that I understand it. And for a soccer player, you can tell it to them just like that, and they'll be like, you'd be surprised the results. The person will first sit down because they like soccer. So you're not even starting off on the wrong foot with them. Literally, you're talking about something that they like. And I'm only using a metaphor because this exists in everything. And then you show them the simple dynamics of how all the energy is channeled. It could be even into a brand. You notice how everyone used to use Maybelline first, but then now it's Max Factor? And then you show them how, look. And so it's what it is just tunneling all the energy into one thing. But overall, the person who's controlling it doesn't really care what one you like and which one you don't like. They just want you to make the choice. And then when you make the choice, so notice what I'm saying. They want the person to say, I like that team and I don't like that other team. That's how you actually create a polarization. You see what I mean? So I'm not going to pour any more sauce on that. I'm actually going to take a moment and just hear any kind of statements or any kind of questions that you may have, especially things that are direct.